Tiffany,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Tiffany is our content director at Out and About Communications, and
Mhm.
we've been working together for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, probably 5 or 6.
It's been a while, like in the best way, a while.
Yeah.
Um, and Tiffany has seen I think what's been really cool in the time we worked together is that she's seen so much growth and changes with clients. I mean, clients that we've had for a number of years and been able to see them grow along with us growing. And um, you all are in for a treat today because Tiffany listens to so many of our clients, so many of our financial services clients, and is directly hearing from the C-suite about, their business objectives, where they're growing, and really helping to shape the messaging and the tone for numerous organizations of varying sizes. And so she has a really keen ear for listening to what's being said, but what's not being said, and then also helping to shape any piece of content, you think blogs, podcast, social media, and so on, and even crisis communications to make sure that it is brand aligned. So we're going to talk about actually a tool that we use for a handful of our clients called brand personalities today. And Tiffany's going to have a chance to really go into what that is and get into more details as it applies to well, content application. So, Tiffany, do you want to share a little bit more about your background before we get into brand personality and what have you, or any of the work that we do together?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we have been working together for 5 or 6 years. I think I base it on just how old my daughter was when we got started. So I think it's been about 5 years now since she's 6. And um, yeah, so before that, I did a lot of freelancing or, contract type of work for a long time. I've been in marketing for quite a long time. Before that, I was a journalist at a little newspaper, and I've always liked words. Even in college, pre-college, every opportunity that I had, a choice that I had about, like I said, school or jobs, it always revolved around just stories and words and how just the power of communication. I think marketing often gets a bad rap for being um, like this, yeah, bad reputation for being like we're trying to convince people of things. And I think I come at it feeling like, especially with push marketing being more what we're doing now, it's more about less convincing people and more trying to meet them where they're at, right? And like they're already looking for the solution. What's the best way that we can communicate it? So yeah, that's just kind of a little
And
background.
I love the word nerd part of it too, right? Because I feel like you're like, okay, check out this thesaurus,
Yes, there are a lot of dictionaries and thesaurus right
yes.
here. Yes.
You're like, okay, check this out. And then you're like, let me explain the background of this word or this symbol. And a lot of those nuances and the language that we're choosing is really important. And it especially is important, if you're looking at mission statement or like I said, we'll get into brand personality or even just the voice and tone. So that's part of the fun part of it. And those words can be they make a difference and even the company culture, right? And how we think
Mhm.
and go about our communication. So with that, let's talk about the brand personality.
Yeah.
I should phrase this, as we kind of get into it, I like to be able to explain kind of what it is, but then how do you actually create a brand personality? So let's talk about first what a brand personality is and why is it important to the work that we're doing for our clients as a tool to utilize and uphold really brand standards. So
Yeah,
share more about
absolutely.
what is this beast?
Yeah, so we do brand personalities, I think, a little differently. So, and not to just, not to pit anything against each other, but I think a lot of times when you see brand personalities, it's more of a brand sort of avatar, often sort of like chosen from like a circle of 16 or 8, or there's different ways to put it. And I don't want to pit anything against each other. I think those can be really helpful, especially if you're new in business or you just haven't really spent a lot of time defining your values and kind of where you're coming from as a business. It can really, that's kind of like the Myers-Briggs way of doing it. But for us at Out and About, we take a slightly different approach. And I think it's just because of where our clients are at. So our clients are often coming from a place of like, I've built this brand really organically, really authentically, but now I'm sort of in a next level of growth. I'm trying to, I've brought on new employees. It's kind of getting beyond what I can hold. And I need tools, like you said, they can help hold all that together without me having to hold all that together. So so for us, it comes from a place of like, okay, we're gonna pull in, and maybe this is getting more into like how we create it, but
That's great.
we're gonna pull in your values, your history, your future, where you're trying to go, and it's like the essential oil of your brand. Like we're gonna take all those things and like pull it all down into one phrase.
Yeah.
So that's how we approach it instead of saying like, okay, you're a thing, one of these 16. We try to narrow everything down into a little phrase, and we do it a little different for each client, but it's usually 2 to 4 words at the most, really, really short. And it's just really, like I said, it's like the concentrate, like as pithy and strong as we can make it. And then that really becomes a North Star for everything out of that. So all our visuals, all our communication, and if we can do it really, really well, also internal communications and decisions that we're making, it can always come back to like, does that feel like us? Does
Hmm.
that feel like that phrase that we've created? Or if not, how can we get it back there? So that's
Okay, so once we've landed on this 2 to 4 word phrase, right?
yes.
How are we defining it, or
Yeah.
defining what it is or what it isn't? What are those kind of pieces of it like?
Yeah. So again, talking about it from a tool perspective, we put this in the brand book, and obviously because they're words and because I'm a nerd about it, if we're gonna use a phrase, we have to make sure to also define it really well. So we'll often kind of break it down into 3 or 4 sort of pillars, like because another way to think about a brand personality is just this is how we want people to feel when we interact with the brand. So
Mhm.
we can define that in different ways. Like we want them to feel courageous, we want them to feel confidence, we want them to feel comfortable or cared for. Those are all C words. It doesn't have to be, but you know, just these are the things we want them to feel, and this is what that looks like and why that's important to us. And then oftentimes, again, with the definitions, we make sure to say, okay, just because it's confident doesn't mean it's arrogant, right? Sometimes pushing the negative too, like it doesn't need to go there, it doesn't need to go there.
Hmm. So yeah, really kind of helping to splice out those
Mm-hmm.
or those words of support, kind of the overarching brand personality. And then how do you get though to that kind of essence, like to that one pager of this is our brand personality? Is it conversation? I know you mentioned the mission, vision, values, and kind of this turning point, but what's the process to narrow that down?
Yeah, so a lot of times when we're creating them, it's kind of when we're first starting to work and through a discovery process with the clients. So we'll pull a lot from just those initial meetings. And the nice thing about those meetings is there's a lot of us coming like needing different things from that meetings, right? So we're pulling brands, marketing strategies out of there, and we're pulling plans that we want to put together for the next 18 months. There's a lot of stuff that comes out, which is kind of nice because oftentimes we'll sit in those meetings, we'll review the recordings later, and sometimes just little phrases will bubble up from the clients. Like they'll just say the same thing over and over in different ways, or just answering different questions. So that's always really helpful. And then honestly, with the nitty gritty here at Out and About, we have a director team. So the creative director and marketing director, we all, like I said, we all have to come from those discovery meetings with different plans. Okay, I've got to go build this. I've got to go build this.
Mm.
So I have to do the brand personality and some of the voice side. We'll sit down and okay, what did you hear and what did you hear? And we'll kind of just talk it through and
Pull it all apart. Yeah.
yes, and kind of help, push and pull things across the table. Like I saw that. Does that help you? And then, yeah, to be totally honest, sometimes we get a little silly with it and start going like, did that feel like this kind of cartoon to you? Does that brand feel like this pop culture song to you? And I think that kind of helps because then you start feeling the feelings. Like it
Mm.
totally feels like a Katy Perry song. And then
Yeah.
from there, then you're like, okay, well, what's the actual word that defines that and not just the song or the cartoon or whatever. So
And then
that
how
can
are these presented then to clients to be able to get sign off on, and for them to also like have that, yeah, that's us feeling, where
be.
they're owning it too.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's super important that they feel like they're owning it, right? Because it needs to not just be like a label that we're putting on. So we just went to a really silly place about cartoons and pop culture, but it needs to feel like something they're very proud of and very like, this is what I've been building. Like finally someone is describing what I've been feeling for so long, what I've been trying to pass on. That from from the founder team or C-suite, but then also it needs to be able to trickle down and get everybody like rallying around it and
Yep.
feeling like this is us, this is who we are. Like it's almost like a mascot. It's not a mascot, but it's that feeling of like, oh, we're all behind that animal or whatever. So as far as how it's presented, so again, from a tool perspective, we present it in a big book. We call it a brand book. Everyone kind of calls it something different, like guidelines. And it's really, as we present it, kind of the middle point. So we'll talk through all the different target markets and UVPs, unique value propositions, and your positioning statement, all those pieces, values and vision, and all those things that brought us to this point, and kind of boil them down. And it's that crux that's the brand personality. Like halfway through, then we're like, okay, all those things boil down into this neat little bow. And then from there, voice guides and brand guides and visuals and all that will sort of flow out of it. So I like to think of like an X. And then as far as once we've built it and we're ready to present it, it really helps to kind of have that initial group, that whoever the key decision makers are, there's a C-suite or whoever that is, kind of sit down and talk with it. Because there are times they're like, that word is not a word we would ever use, or, in context with the history of our company, random things will come up. So that's really nice to kind of tease through all of that. And then and once we're all on board and we all agree, that's the word, that's the phrase, whatever, then we'll kind of present it to like the executive team or department heads or kind of the next layer of leadership. And then if the company is big enough, they'll kind of take it from there to their teams as needed. So, yeah.
And can you share maybe like an application? So once it's actually put together and it's agreed upon and it's been agreed upon with the C-suite leadership, if there's department heads, right, and employees are starting to get buy-in too, right? Then how does it actually apply? Like, how does it apply on the marketing side and maybe even cross department? How have you seen it be a tool for kind of upholding that personality?
Yeah. So, from a marketing perspective, like I said, it's like we use it kind of the middle point of a brand book. So, even as I said in those initial meetings when we're all kind of deciding, okay, it's going to be this is what it's going to be. It helps us then decide, like, okay, key phrases, key messaging that's going to define the brand. They all have to sound like that,
Mhm.
or colors, or a new logo, or various visual um, applications. Like they all have to look like that and feel like that. So that's kind of the starting point. And then again, once we've all kind of decided on it, it really serves as a North Star. So whether we're writing social media posts or again, visual posts, like our copywriting team, our design team, like everyone can go back to this. And I think from a really practical perspective, again, we have that whole book that's like, it will have this color, it will not have this color, it will, here's a way to say it. But I
Right.
think when someone sits down and like, okay, I have to write a series of social media posts, I have to write a series of emails, it's nice to have just that mental place to sit and go, okay, I have to be here as I'm writing,
Can
as
you
opposed to
maybe
kind of like pushing up against a guideline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. So could you maybe share how we use it internally and even sharing it with our copywriters, right? Or our
Mhm.
copy editors as well? Like, how are they utilizing that to sort of like channel the essence of that brand voice and tone?
Yeah. So, um, exactly like that. We do share it with them, um, and share it with them every single time. So it's not just like you see it once, but like every time we have to sit down and write again, social media or an email or an ad or anything, they'll have that to go back to. We also do create like a video, like a little loom around it too, so that someone's explaining it, just because again, words can be misinterpreted or interpreted different ways. So that there's someone saying, this is what that feeling is and supposed to be.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, does that answer?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, you're right. It is put in front of, I mean, it's used all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Yeah,
not just in copy, but in design as well, too, and
yes,
all the
exactly.
pieces that we're doing.
It's
Yeah,
easy to copy, but design, same thing. Because again, like it's easy to say, like, here's your logo, here's your colors, here's your, and we have to have those so that nothing strays. But I think it's nice to be able to sit, when you want to come up with a really cool new ad or print ad or
right.
social campaign and you want it to be creative, it's nice to know I'm coming from this place of, we were talking earlier, like confidence, or am I coming from a place of fun, or like where am I starting with that and what do I want people to feel? So
What kind of energy that you're pulling. It almost seems like maybe it's like your I don't know if baseline's the right word, but if you were to present like this ad, you could go, does this feel like enter and brand
yes,
personality, right?
exactly. Yeah, it's like
So
a filter.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. And then any applications for how it's been used for other departments or outside of marketing?
Yeah, I think I think when it's done really well, it can serve as, I think that's almost like the sign that it's working really well is when it can start being used internally. And again, when people start getting really excited, and we've seen that happen ourselves and with our clients, where just randomly people like, is it that? Are we doing, are we
Yeah,
being that thing? Or, just having that conversation or just almost talking about it. It's almost again like, I don't know, I think about like sports teams, it's that time of year, but like, um, I don't know, it comes like a rallying cry or something like, we're this, people get excited about.
totally.
But yeah, I mean, one thing that came up for us that we've talked about for our own use is just kind of getting everyone on the same page before like a meeting, or even internally when you have to have conversations like, well, we need to come from this place because
Mhm.
all agreed upon it. And I think it's important too to talk about, it's not just like I need to put on this facade. Like it's, if it's done really well, it should be organically from the brand.
Yep,
So it's not just, I know we talked about this internally too, like it's not just, okay, I'm going to put on this face before this client meeting and then I'll take it off afterwards, but it's more like I was hired for this reason, I belong in this team, and so this, like, I'm stepping into this thing that's natural for me because this is who I belong to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that energy that's projected as the brand is coming. It's like not just one person, but it's really across the board. Is that
Yeah.
kind of holding the values, but it's sort of like you said, like the essential oil of the brand. I think you said that
Yes, exactly. Like we all smell like lavender.
yes,
That,
it's sort of,
you're here.
but it's that idea of like really kind of narrowing it down, or like you said, it's like Katy Perry song, that feeling, right? And what's the
Mhm.
feeling if you were to interact with this person or that person? There's a consistent standard and energy across the board, or and that you would feel that in design or copy and what have you. So
Yeah. And that's what I mean about it not being fake, because at least, I mean, for us, we hire for values, right? And we hire for being an authentic, natural part of the team. So it's like when I'm putting on the brand personality, I'm not putting on something fake. I'm putting on like, this is why I belong here. This is, who we all are sort of together. So
no, well said. So anything that you think would be a good takeaway that I haven't asked? I know we're wrapping up quickly
yeah.
here. So
Yeah. No, I guess one other story, we were talking with a new executive at one of our clients, and she was just saying like this is a client where everyone's really embraced their brand personality, and she was just saying I could feel it at all the touch points, like every interaction. And she's like, it wasn't until you explain, because we gave the whole presentation to her, and she's like, now I understand what that was. Like I have a word for it now, but before it was like I could just tell everything felt like this brand, this, who we are, but I didn't know what that meant. So it was nice that we could actually give her the words for it. But
and that's the hard work of leadership, right? Like being able to set
yes.
that company culture, those values are so essential to, like you said earlier, hiring and just the energy that's brought into every day. And then how do we sort of take that and distill that? And
Mm-hmm.
that's, as you were saying, then it gives us a place in which we can come from, if it's copy, design, anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I guess one more point to that too, we keep mentioning values, and I think the differentiator between like your values and your brand personality is just that, like, well, first of all, values often we all kind of use the same ones, we say the same words. And so it's nice to have something that feels very, well, lack of a better word, like branded to your brand. That's like we use this phrase, right? Like, because oftentimes we'll choose like words that are slightly juxtapositioned or slightly funny together, because then once they come together, it's more powerful. So I think that's the difference too, because then you have this separate thing that's like it's almost an inside joke. It's like everybody's just like, this is our thing. We get
Yeah.
excited about it versus values, which are important, but sometimes they're like, well, we all talk about whatever those five things are. So
Yeah. And that's, yeah. So it also was like kind of, it takes those, comparing what you're saying too, take those value, mission, vision, all these big pieces, like you're
Mhm.
talking about sort of that X, right? And it funnels it down to sort of, like you said, get the essence of it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so fun. Well, thank you, Tiffany, for taking time, sharing a little bit of the behind the scenes of what we do here at Out and About, and also that process to be able to get through. I mean, a really important piece, especially as businesses are growing. So thank you for giving us a sneak peek and sharing more about what makes things stick here. So
Absolutely. It's been fun. Thank you.
absolutely. All right, and we'll include links as well to additional information about brand personality or all of that. And don't hesitate to reach out with questions. Thanks,
All
Tiffany.
right, thanks.